Jeremy Swayman will not attend training camp with the Bees until his contract is done. She's Annabelle Hasselbeck. I'm George Balekji. This is Boston has entered the chat from the PNC Bank studio. AB, this has been the biggest news in Boston all offseason with all the hockey talk. Jeremy Swayman was their best player in the playoffs. He started 44 games for them last season. They traded away Linus Ullmark, clearly saying Sway is our guy. And everything was they're getting closer. They're getting closer to an agreement after saying we're not going to go to arbitration. And you hear Don Sweeney there. He's disappointed because he wanted a deal done, and they don't have it done yet.
You're right. I think we all thought that it was going to happen today, that we were going to hear something about it today. I know we were texting like, oh, hey, stay tuned. Like, we're probably going to be talking about a contract to this afternoon. And here we are, right? It's still nothing. But you're right. Sweeney did say he is disappointed. But what I did like about how he said, I'm disappointed in myself because this is my responsibility and I haven't been able to get it done. So I think throughout this whole conversation, the last, couple months, weeks is going down, is that the language that both sides have been talking with has been very respectful, very thoughtful. And I did think it was impressive how he kind of took the responsibility on himself in that.
It is refreshing to see that transparency and that candidness from a general manager. He could have gone up and gone with the GM talk. Contract negotiations underway. I'm not going to talk further, but he kept fielding questions. And the way you put it out, too, of how respectful they've been on both sides, like Sweeney is disappointed. He's not suiting up with the team. And when they're on the ice, he's not out there with them. I even remember back to when Jeremy Swayman was on Nesson for the Jimmy Fund, and Adam Pellerin asked the perfect question, what's your confidence like it'll get done? And Swayman said, there's a lot of confidence. I know there's something special building in this locker room. It'll work out, and I couldn't be happier to be a Bruin. But he said it's going to be business. He knows where he stands. He knows how well he played in the playoffs. Now he knows how young he is at 25. And this goes back to last season he played on an arbitration deal and said he never wanted to go back. He's a restricted free agent right now. And Sway and the Bruins both agreed we're not going to go back to arbitration. We'll negotiate. We'll do it as pure business. We'll get something done. They have until December 1st. If nothing's agreed to, and I'm not saying that's where it's trending because both sides are saying closer, closer, and closer. If he's not agreed to a deal by December 1st, he can't play at all this season. But obviously, the Bruins want to get something done before the puck drops for their regular season in October.
No, you're right. And they did say they have a date, right? They did name drop December 1st. And so I think once everyone heard that, they're like, okay, well, now we know. Like, that's what we're going to be keeping our eye on. So it is funny that, that's how we're holding on to all the things. But you can really tell that through the language that everyone's been talking about, whether it's a player, the organization, or even Jeremy, you can tell that their relationships have really been accounted for in this and just how they're speaking to each other. They've been through this before. Sweeney even said, we've had other players go through this. Like, it's nothing new. They have this sort of poise and peace about them. Yet here we are also all right, it's going to happen. Let's get going. So it is interesting.
We've seen it, David Pastrnak, and we'll get to more sound bites from Don Sweeney. Pastrnak, Charlie McAvoy, Brandon Carlo, the names that he dropped of. They've taken time, but we've got them done. I think that's the important part. Let's go to another soundbite. This is a longer one from Don Sweeney, but it's an important one to listen to. This is him going more in depth on the contract aspect and just trying to get a deal done with Jeremy Swayman.
Disappointed that when you set things as a priority in a general manager spot, that you do your best to try and accomplish that, and I haven't been able to do that yet. But I will make everybody aware that some of the inconsistencies that have been reported are completely inaccurate. And I think that being a representative of the Bruins, and how we do business and try and keep things close to the vest and respect everybody's own privacy, that I'll answer questions, but I'm not going to go into depth of the negotiation of talks we had. Because we're excited about the players that are here and looking to move forward. As I said, I'm disappointed. But at the end of the day, I'm optimistic because I think we'll find a landing spot before December 1st. I'll continue to work every day. It's not unlike, David Pastrnak and Charlie McAvoy and Brandon Carlo. They've been longtime Boston Bruins. It's a process that seemingly, every year there's a few players, and this is the year that we have one. But I have to continue to do my job. I have to respect, the position that Jeremy and his camp has taken, and continue to try and find common ground.
So heard it right there, AB, as you were alluding to, him saying, I'm disappointed in myself. Like, this is a priority, and he's not hiding from that. He's not acting like it's not a big deal. We've heard other GMs, owners, you could say like a Jerry Jones or the Cowboy go, nah, it's not a priority for me. He's owning it. He's saying, like, we know what we have with Sway. And something that's important that Don Sweeney mentioned, too, where he approached this offseason knowing what he had to do. He knew he had to extend Jeremy Swayman, and he said it. He goes, we had 2 goalies, both want to start 55 games. And that's why they traded Linus Ullmark. And basically saying Linus wasn't going to accept the role to be a number 2, which I don't blame him because he's still really good at a young age. And Swayman wasn't going to accept that, especially after the playoff run he had, where once he got that start in the first round series against the Leafs, he never let up, and he was the best goalie in the postseason. But again, to your point of him talking about, I'm disappointed because of himself, you just see that accountability from Don Sweeney. You see how much it wears on him. And even to go out, the inaccuracies he mentioned on the reporting. That was on Spit and Chicklets about a month ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. Biz saying that he wasn't picking up phone calls and they haven't heard from him in 3 weeks. He's like, no, that is absolutely false, 100% false. You won't find any GM that does that. This is Don Sweeney stepping up. First press conference of this season for him and just owning everything in the full accountability.
100%. And that clip was even from the beginning of the press conference when he handled it. He was really calm. He kind of kept his composure about the inaccuracies that the media was reporting. And then at the end, like the last 2 minutes of his press conference, that's when he was like, this is BS. And he really brought the temper and the energy because he was like, I'm not standing for that. I've been clear. I've been transparent. Coach even said, I think one of the reporters came in after him, was like, oh, Coach Sweeney told us, X, Y, and Z. And he was like, whoa, I'm shocked that he said that all to you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm confused that he would say that much information. But that's because he was being so transparent and so honest with the situation. Because you're right, he wants to say, Bruins fans, people in New England, this is my priority. I'm not, turning off my phone. I'm not turning a shoulder to it. This is something that I care about. And you could just tell that in the beginning, he knew what he was going to say. He kept his poise about the media. I'm not going to go after you guys. And at the end, he was like, all right, that's it. This is BS, man.
You're going to ask me
to pull it out.
You're going to ask me a third, fourth time. I'm going to make it very clear. And that's what he did. And he followed up with it again. He also mentioned, as I said, McAvoy, Carlo, David Pastrnak. I think back to 2019, there was a bridge deal for Charlie McAvoy and Brandon Carlo. McAvoy was a 3-year deal, $4.5 million a year, before eventually signing his 8 by $9.5 million. Carlo was 2 years, $2.5 million before his 6 by $4.1 million. And that was a 2019 Bruins team tight against a cap. So they had to make deals work for now and then later. I wonder if that's what it's an option maybe it could boil down to for Swayman. If you're 25 and we have $8 million in cap space, so we could pay you now, we could pay you next year when that cap goes up to around $24, $28 million, or we could do a bridge year. Let's do 2 years at a certain number, which I don't know. And we've heard multiple reports on what sides they both are, but they keep getting closer. But that's him pointing to his experience and saying all this. And for him to get out in front, too, and right away address the Spit and Chicklets reports that were out, and then bring it up again at the end. And for Montgomery to be caught off guard of how transparent he was, that's Don Sweeney being aware. He knows if I don't address everything at this presser, then it's going to be the same thing on podcasts that where they're going to say, well, is it this? Is it that? What is he doing? Is he actually picking up the phone? He addressed every step of the way. You just hear the urgency from him, though, of how badly he wants Jeremy Swayman out there with the Bruins.
Yeah, I mean, he said, literally verbatim, he said, every day that Jeremy is out, it hurts our team, it hurts him, it hurts our preparation that we want to do, and it's going to stop us from finding, we need to find common ground.
Yeah. And
so you're right, he's being, no one in an organization wants to go publicly and say, something is hurting our organization. Right? You want to look strong. You want to look, perfect, and you got no issues from the outside, right? Yeah. You don't want to give any teams any advantage that you can. And here he is literally saying, this is hurting our team, and it's hurting Jeremy's development as a player.
And especially that he wants to show to the dressing room for the Bruins. I'm pushing to get your guy there. I know the moves I made and you see what locker room is going to be vacant, what stall is going to be vacant when you're getting ready for practice tomorrow. He's making sure to hit on that. I'm doing everything I can to get Jeremy Swayman in the building. And he knows the value of what he brings together, too. I mean, Brandon Busey down in Providence. They signed Eunice Corpusalo in the offseason. But those are guys that, if Sway goes 55, can they backfill with that 27 on the other end, or 60 and 22, whichever way you want to put it? That those are going to be the backups, but he knows who the starter is. And he knows the window he has. David Pastrnak, Charlie McAvoy, Brad Marchand, who we'll talk about later, bringing in an Elias Lindholm, a Zadorov to help out on the blue line, while you bring along these younger players, it's all about timing for any team that's making a push to win a Stanley Cup, which the Bruins are trying to do every season, and trying to take that step up from being the fourth best team in the East to better, and obviously a deeper run than just a second round exit. He knows this window is now, and it won't be forever, especially with the core. So that's him, saying everything on this. What I think is important too is you walk away from that. You hear how disappointed he is that Sway isn't under contract, and Swayman's doing the right thing, in my opinion, of being stern that I'm not going to play until I get paid, and I'm not going to step on that ice until you guys pay me. Like, he has the leverage, but you can tell that it's not done yet. But as all the reports are, it's closer. It's closer. It's closer. It's a work in progress. It's not a stalemate. It didn't get stagnant. They didn't give him a piece of paper, said this is the number and that's it. So they're working closer to get to a solution to get Swayman on the ice.
Right. And it doesn't seem like it's ever been a stalemate throughout the whole process. It has seemed like it's been constant communication, like Sweeney's been saying.
Yeah.
They're working towards something. They're trying to find common ground. And even from, some of what the players said, there's the tone and the posture that the Bruins have taken on this. I feel like if it was a stalemate and if there were things that it was, kind of aggressive feelings towards each other, some things were being said, we would know by what's not being said. Mm-hmm. And I think that we can tell from what is being said. We're like, okay, the team is in good spirits, and the team's going into battle. They're going into training camp. People are fighting for their jobs. People are fighting for their spots and to, get higher on the roster, so. And so really, I think some of these guys like on the team, they're like, yes, we're worried about that. We're concerned about our teammate. We want him to be out here on the ice with us, but like, I got to go fight for my career right now.
Yeah.
So I think as a team, it's not a distraction in the sense of like, we got a season to prepare for.
The priorities were to get deeper down the middle. They got that with Elias Lindholm. To help out on the blue line, they got that with Zadorov. And you don't give Lindholm that big contract without knowing what you're doing of putting him next to a David Pastrnak, putting both of them in front of a Charlie McAvoy, Zadorov, and a Lindholm as well, a Hampus Lindholm, back on the blue line. It's that priority list of priority number one was Sway. Priority number two, get a better center and a playmaker to play off of Pasta, especially in the playoffs. He's checked two of his three boxes, of the biggest needs this offseason. He's at one left, and you see how much it eats at him that it's not done yet. It's just good to see this, I think, because he could have walked up there and given all the GM or the non-answers. Mm-hmm. You know how coaches can handle pressers and general managers and owners. But he gave as honest answers as he can without going into detail on the negotiations. He went up and owned it. He said, it's on me. He said, I'm disappointed, but we want Swayman, and it's getting closer, and he is a priority. He's letting him know how important he is. And as we talk about, he wants him there for when the puck drops on the regular season. That's October 8th. Preseason starts September 22nd. October 8th is a priority with Swayman. You want him there sooner, of course. But that's also a guy that's worked out with the team in the offseason, been on the ice, putting in the work. So he's not just messing around back home in Alaska or somewhere else. He's been here in Boston. They've had him in the building. It's now just a priority of getting him onto the ice.
Yeah, I feel like if he wasn't in the building, then conversations, verbiage, how we're talking about might be a little more aggressive. But if you're talking the way that they're talking, it doesn't seem to be a problem.
We know Sway, especially the case he made. The interesting part that he's in is that you think of like a Vasilevsky when he got his big contract, but he was the number one goalie for the Lightning for like 2 seasons at that point, if I remember correctly. Swayman was the number one goalie the past 2 playoffs. Well, actually this past playoffs, it was Linus the one before, and then Sway got thrown in game 6. But point I'm making is Swayman, the one thing hampering him is he hasn't been that number one guy for a regular season and then the playoff run. That's the expectations now. You're going to come in, you're going to be our number one throughout the entire regular season. No more one on, one off, no more switching off. And as it was in the playoffs, which he completely owned, and he was absurdly good against both the Leafs and the Panthers, is you're going to be the number one guy now in the postseason. But he's never done that regular and post. And I think that's what must be the holdup is on getting this done.
It definitely is. It definitely is. And just even with that, the lack of long-term experience, and then just his age. You're 25, right? Like, you're not seeing a ton of 25-year-old goalies asking probably for what he's asking for, even though he has proven that he is one of the top 10 goalies in the NHL, right? So I think you're right. I think it's a combination of, because there's not that long-term experience playing at that level with that success, that's probably where the holdup is.